In the last video I went through resilience, and in this one I'm going to be going through availability zones. And this is where a lot of the misunderstandings and any type of confusion would come up, is generally in availability zones. So to start off with, regions are facilities in a 2 millisecond delay or less area, and the facilities have buildings, domains, etc. And this is mainly done, resilience is mainly done by having resources in different instances and different fault domains. So in the event of a data center failure, you can use availability zones, because they're the individual buildings with their own cooling power and networking. And most regions provide the ability to use availability zones. In the event of a natural disaster, due to their close proximity, this probably won't help much, but in the event of a data center failure, which is likely more common, this will significantly help. And when you use the availability zones, when you set everything up, you use 3 different Azure data centers. And there's no such thing as building AZ-1, AZ-2, AZ-3. So if you have one resource that's assigned to AZ-1, that could be AZ-7 for a different resource. They're not universally AZ-1, AZ-2, AZ-3. And going back, not all regions will support availability zones, but most will. And it's just within the 2 millisecond area. They could be right next to each other, they could be miles apart, it just depends. And if you really want the proximity, you can use PPG, which is not an availability zone, but it'll these are proximity groups, and it'll keep them as close as possible. And there's often an analogy of don't keep your eggs all in one basket, but if you only have one egg, this doesn't really help you. You need to have multiple instances, and these are backups, not, it's not like a resiliency god. If one of the 3 goes down, you're still going to lose 1/3 of your workload. 2/3 will still be working, but you're still going to lose it. These will just be backups in case of some larger failure. Most of the times you don't care about your VMs, you just care about the data, and using ZRS you can make copies of your data and put them in different availability zones, and it would be saved in many different local locations. And Azure Site Recovery can move your workload to a different Azure availability zone in the event that you're trying to move them. If you have multiple instances, you'll likely have a load balancer. Make sure that this has the same resiliency. Anything that depends upon something else, you need to keep it resilient together. So if you have your storage, it also requires this to function, whatever this is. You want to make sure that they're both have the same resiliency. Otherwise, one will be able to work, and one won't be able to work. And this one won't be able to work if this one doesn't work, but if this one works and this one's not, then it doesn't make sense to have that redundancy on the first one. And all the services that have availability zones can be found on this website. It's about a 5-minute read. Provides all the resources that do provide availability zones and resiliency. So it's learn.microsoft.com. On their website, you can find out all of that. And this is for availability, not disaster recovery. The next one is disaster recovery, the next video that I'm going to make. But this one, if disaster comes through, isn't really going to help you. This is more to keep availability up. So like if there's a data center failure, that wouldn't be considered something for disaster recovery. That's it for this one, and the next one will be disaster recovery.